In the early hours of the next day, Aremu saw Ogundipe come out of his hut. All of a sudden, he saw something unusual and he screamed. Immediately, Ogundipe turned and saw Aremu. Immediately, Ogundipe picked up his gun and shot him to prevent him from going to see exactly what he saw. Long ago, in the village of Atere, there lived a man called Ogundipe. He was very popular because he was the best palm wine tapper in the village. His palm wine was so refreshing and sweet. Despite the fact Ogundipe was barely 2 years in the village, his palm wine was sweeter than that of all the palm wine tappers in Atere. All the men would gather at Ogundipe's shop after work to drink his special palm wine. Soon, the other palm wine tappers became envious of him. At times, his place would be so filled up that people had to queue just to have a taste of Ogundipe's palm wine. Wives in the community soon became bothered because their husbands spent more time drinking in Ogundipe's shop than they spent with them. Soon, the women gathered to discuss their plight. One of the women said that her husband is always coming back at night now because he spends all the time at the palm wine joint. Another woman said her own husband has stopped paying his children's school fees as he has used all their money in drinking. The third lady said that her once quiet husband is now a drunkard, all thanks to Ogundipe's palm wine. The fourth woman said that her husband now chases women about, and this is because he meets them at the spot where they drink palm wine. The last woman burst into uncontrollable tears, narrating how her husband has now turned her into a punching bag. That most times he is drunk, and when he cautions him, he will start beating her. They all planned enough was enough and that they were going to protest to the king. That something has to be done about it, that Ogundipe's palm wine was not normal and there was more to it. The women marched to the king's palace to report. The king felt pity for them and asked them to come the next day as he will invite Ogundipe to the palace. The next day, the women assembled angrily to the palace to meet with the man that has turned their husbands into nuisance. Ogundipe reported to the palace and the king asked him if the allegations were true. Ogundipe said he was just doing his business as the private lives of his customers was none of his business. The women said he was evil and had to leave the village as life was better before his emergence in the village. Ogundipe told the king he had a sample of his freshly tapped palm wine, which the king can taste for confirmation. He offered the king a cup. After the king drank it, the king smiled and said, "Indeed, this is the best palm wine I have ever tasted in my life." The king asked for more. He drank with so much satisfaction and immediately dismissed the case against Ogundipe. He turned to the women and said, "Do not disturb an innocent man going about his business peacefully. Go take care of your homes." The women were surprised at the take of the king. They left the palace sad. Ogundipe's business continued to boom since he now had the endorsement of the king. The other palm wine tappers had a meeting one day and they complained bitterly about how Ogundipe has come to take all their customers. One of the palm wine tappers asked that what does he do differently? Another one asked that when and where does he tap his palm wine from, as no one has ever seen him going to tap palm wine or seen him on a palm tree. The palm wine tappers now decided to send a spy to watch his activities to know exactly what he was doing differently. Aremu, one of the palm wine tappers, decided to keep an eye on him. One night, Aremu was in the bush keeping watch on Ogundipe. After all the customers had left, he stayed there all night, but he saw nothing unusual. Aremu slept in the bush because he wanted to see where and how Ogundipe tapped his palm wine in the morning. In the early hours of the next day, Aremu saw Ogundipe come out of his hut. All of a sudden, he saw something unusual and he screamed. Immediately, Ogundipe turned and saw Aremu. Immediately, Ogundipe picked up his gun and shot him to prevent him from going to see exactly what he saw. The next day, Ogundipe went to report that a thief wanted to rob him and he had to shoot him dead. Everybody believed the story except the association of Palmwine tappers who couldn't come out to tell the truth. Aremu's wife wept bitterly at the death of her husband, and the Palmwine tappers told her the true story about her husband's death. Aremu's wife vowed to avenge the death of her husband. It was 3 months already, and the Ojuoye festival was fast approaching. The Ojuoye festival was one of the biggest celebrations in Atere and attracted people from all walks of life. Ogundipe was one of the vendors to sell palm wine for that day. On the day of the festival, everyone wanted to have a taste of Ogundipe's wine. He made so much money while the other palm wine sellers barely sold anything. He was so happy. After the festival, people started demanding his palm wine from far and wide. Ogundipe became rich and started buying houses. After the king, Ogundipe was the most respected in Atere. Ogundipe suddenly fell in love with Aduke, a girl from the neighboring village he met during Ojuoye festival. They were so much in love that the story went round the village. Some spinsters in the village felt jealous that Ogundipe did not find them worthy of being his wife. Soon, Ogundipe got married to Aduke. It was a big ceremony in Atere village as people came from different villages to grace the occasion. One day, Ogundipe woke up very early and stepped out, leaving his wife on the bed, who pretended to be sleeping. As he stepped out, the wife tiptoed and followed him. Ogundipe went to the backyard where he kept his jars of palm wine and started urinating inside them one after the other. Aduke was shocked to the marrows. She couldn't imagine what she just saw. Urinating inside a palm wine jar, she wondered. Later, he raised his hands up and recited some incantations, and immediately a ghost appeared that filled up the jars of palm wine. This was too much for Aduke to handle. She returned to the bed and pretended nothing has happened. All through the night, she couldn't sleep. She had several thoughts on her mind. The next day, people trooped in as usual to drink their favorite palm wine. As they drank in merriment, Aduke pitied them. If only they knew what they were drinking, she thought. Aduke kept spying on Ogundipe till she could recite the incantations herself. One day, Ogundipe traveled. Aduke went to the same spot where he invoked the spirit and recited incantations. And when the spirit appeared, Aduke poured salt on it. The spirit disappeared and never came back again. She went into a room that Ogundipe never allowed her to enter. She opened the wardrobe and saw a bottle containing several names. When she checked, it was the names of most of Ogundipe's customers, including the king. She took the bottle and broke it. So the men in this village had been held captive since. Anyways, today I set them free, she said to herself. That night, Ogundipe came back and did not know anything had happened. The next morning, as usual, he stepped out very early, urinated in the palm wine jars, and tried reciting incantations, but the ghost wouldn't appear. He tried again and nothing happened. He was surprised. Immediately, Aduke came out and started laughing. I guess you're expecting your spiritual messenger to bring your palm wine as usual. Your game is up, Ogundipe. Ogundipe was shocked. What are you doing here? And what have you done? I know all your secrets, and I have driven away your evil spirit messenger, including the men you held captive in that bottle. I have set them free. I am finished, Ogundipe cried out. You are finished indeed, said Aduke. Immediately, Ogundipe ran into the house to bring his gun, fired at her twice, but the bullets did not penetrate her. Who are you? Ogundipe asked. Aduke's eyes turned blue. I am the sister-in-law of Aremu, who you killed because he saw your secrets. My elder sister, Aremu's wife, called me on this mission to destroy you. You made my sister a widow and you caused her pain. When she invited me for this task, I had to go do some spiritual fortifications because I knew this was more spiritual than physical. At that point, Ogundipe knew his game was up, so he tried to run, but the village youths ran after him and caught him. They took him to the king, where he confessed that he has been using spiritual powers to manufacture his palm wine, and his urine was a unique flavor that made everyone come back for more. and that he had tied down all the men in the village, that for every time they drink his palm wine, the poorer they become. He also said that he intentionally killed Aremu because he saw his secret and he didn't want him to tell anyone. The whole villagers were surprised. So all this while they have been drinking urine, they thought. The king banished him from the land, never to return again. The women were so happy that they had their husbands again. The men became more responsible, and Aremu's wife felt accomplished.